you're a regular watcher of the show, you know that we get to travel a bit. And most of the time, the places we go to are a little bit different. They speak a different language or drive on the wrong side of the road. But this is Iceland, where they do things very differently. Not only do they speak another language, they've got a different alphabet, and they drive on the wrong side of the road, and they've got special cars in which to do it. We're here to take in the sights, experience those cars, and yes, we will be heading to the volcano. Toyota organized the 4-day adventure in the southwestern part of the island nation behind the wheel of some very special buckies. To see how a regular go-anywhere Hilux was transformed into an unstoppable off-roader, we visited Reykjavik and headed to a rather unique workshop. Living in a country as tough as Iceland means that going on a road trip, or sometimes even getting around, means you can't just jump in your car and take off. And even a car as good as the Hilux needs a little bit of extra tweaking. And that's why we're at Arctic Trucks to find out how they convert a normal Hilux into something like this. It's a company with a uniquely Icelandic approach to conversions. Now, you may have seen a raised body Hilux doing the rounds in your neighborhood, but the way Arctic Trucks do it is a little bit different. It's not just a case of jacking it up and throwing on a new suspension. It's all engineered and regulated and tested to take on literally the toughest driving conditions in the world. There are a few versions available. The more basic ones involve the obvious suspension and tire changes, as well as some extra bodywork and things like long-range tanks and extra diff locks. The engines for all remain the same, and surprisingly, so do the brakes. The most difficult thing about driving an Arctic truck in Iceland is not that you're in a really wide car on some pretty narrow roads on the wrong side of the road, so you have to look to your right to see what's coming up in your rearview mirror. It's that the national speed limit is 80 kilometers an hour. I'm from Joburg. This is going to be tough. So with a big car and a light foot, we set out to discover what can only be described as an epic country. Iceland is incredible, not just for its natural beauty, but for its history, its culture, and its approach to modern life. Yes, they hunt whales and eat puffins, but they don't burn a single lump of coal for electricity. The whole world is going on about being more green. Motor manufacturers are concerned about CO2 emissions and not hurting the environment. But for the Icelanders, it's almost a way of life. The entire country is run on geothermal power. Power stations like this one at Nesjavellir provide clean energy to the towns and cities of the country, all without relying on a single ounce of fossil fuel to generate electricity. Even the construction of the plants is designed to have as little impact on the land as possible, following the contours of the mountains around them. Driving an Arctic truck isn't that different from driving a regular Hilux. I mean, the differences that you'd expect are the obvious ones. The steering is a little bit heavier, and of course, with those extra tires, there's a lot more mass to try and slow down, so the brakes aren't quite as sharp as you'd expect. Of course, these cars are designed to handle the worst off-road conditions on the planet, which means their manners on tar aren't always the best, especially with the big 44-inch tire. The only problem with having such big wheels is that they're difficult to balance. And when you get up to about 65 kilometers, the wheel starts shaking violently in your hand. But once you press on and get past that, it's fine. And press on we did, to one of the most famous places in Iceland, Blue Lagoon in Keflavik. This byproduct of geothermal power provides a heated lake in which to sip Viking beer, absorb minerals into your skin, and just take in the splendor of the surrounding volcanic formations. This place provides the backdrop to the mother of all road trips. Forget Route 66, head out onto National Road 1, which circles the island, and you'll see the most amazing scenery. And the best thing? Iceland is about 3 times the size of Gauteng with less than 5% of the population, so traffic is a foreign concept here. The truth of the matter is, you don't need a highly specialized 4x4 to enjoy a drive through Iceland. The roads are narrow, yes, but they're all in great condition, and once you're out of the city, you literally hardly see another car. If Toyota can organize us something like a Lexus ISF while we're here, and permission to go over the speed limit. There was no ISF on offer, but once we were off the road, all thoughts of enjoying some hard cornering on tar were replaced with the fun of enjoying the Arctic truck Hiluxes in wide open spaces. And the sights just didn't end. We left that dust bowl and made our way to a place called Giza, where there's Giza. There is a lot of water in this country, exploding from the earth, frozen in the mountains, dropping out of the sky and falling off waterfalls. With another fish lunch out of the way, we continued on. Well, it's all been nice and relaxing up till now. Yesterday we chilled at the Blue Lagoon for a couple of hours, had some reindeer burgers. No, I'm not kidding. But now, the real fun begins. We've just left the tar and hit some gravel, we're letting the tires down, and now we're going to see what the Arctic trucks are really made of. What would a trip to an island be without a visit to the beach? This is Solheim Fjord, except this stuff is not made for tanning. It's made for a different kind of enjoyment. More wide open space, no beach driving restrictions, and a few dunes to play on. This beach is in the southernmost part of Iceland, and like a lot of beaches, it's where water from inland areas finds its way to the sea. Problem is, this particular bit of water wasn't here when Toyota set out our driving route a few weeks before our arrival, which meant we had to dive in without knowing for sure where the best crossing points were. We made it through and headed on to Gullfoss, another very pretty waterfall, but also a dire consequence of global warming. The surrounding glacier is melting so rapidly that there's much more water here than there should be. But moving away from the doom and gloom, sadly it is a politically correct world, which means you can't just jump in your longboat, sail off to a foreign land, pillage a whole lot of villages, scare the locals and steal their loot. So what these crazy Icelanders do for thrills is a sport called torfara, which is Formula Off-Road, and it is every bit as crazy as it looks. A few current and former national Formula Off-Road champions were our chauffeurs. Tiny off-road machines with modified V8s in these conditions are an immense amount of fun. The amazing thing about driving in Iceland is how it changes all the time. Sure, you've got the cities and towns and all the usual stuff, but you venture a little bit further out and you've got lakes and this kind of lush green hillside. And you go around a corner and then all of a sudden you've got this vast expanse of volcanic wasteland with just rocks and fine shrubbery. And the next thing you know, you pop over the top of the hill and you're on top of a glacier. But not just any glacier. This was the site of the planetary bowel movement that caused all that fuss with air travel a few months back. This is all that's left of the volcano Eyjafjallajökull. And as much trouble as that one caused, it has a bigger sister, Katla. And historically, when the small one goes, the bigger one goes soon after. We travelled on and up through the now dry floodplains, up the side of a mountain, and finally to our ultimate destination and the reason we were here, to experience an Arctic truck on Vatnajökull, Europe's biggest glacier. Tar is okay, sand is fine, rocks is cool, gravel, great. But this is going to be a driving lesson of note. I've hardly even seen snow, let alone drive on it. And there was quite a lot of snow. Fortunately for this part of the journey, we were behind the wheel of the AT44, Arctic Truck's biggest and toughest machine. This is very much like driving in very thick sand. The only problem is when you get a warning from your guide saying, please stay in the tracks because there are cracks in the glacier. So you can have as much faith as you want in your equipment, but you know if you deviate, you might just disappear forever. And it is incredibly nerve-wracking. This is the kind of terrain that the AT44 was built for. Now, we've been told to keep our driving on a very narrow section of the glacier because there could be holes just about anywhere we could disappear under the ice. So to keep us on the straight and narrow and to help us enjoy the place, we've got 44-inch tires. We've got an extra low-range gear and, of course, the crevasse bar, just in case of any unexpected cracks in the Earth's surface. And even though we all stuck to the recommended route, the ice finally gave way under the weight of car number 4 in the convoy, and the right front slipped into the resulting hole. Granted, it was a small hole, but you couldn't see the bottom of it, and it didn't always take the weight of a Hilux to crack the ice. There's only a few things you need. Whoa, the ice just made a very odd sound, sorry. I myself. I needed a moment to regather my thoughts and change my underpants. The ice was solid, and I was going to say, if you come to Iceland, and you really should come to Iceland at some point in your life, there's only a few things that you really need. Some good cold weather gear, decent set of boots, and if you're really going to enjoy it, you need a decent set of balls and an Arctic truck. This really is one of the greatest places on the planet, and to enjoy it fully, you need one of the best off-road vehicles ever made. But if you can't get to Iceland, maybe you can convince Toyota to convert your Hilux in the new Arctic Trucks workshop that's being set up in Joburg.